So you talked about criticism, feedback, your experience at North Texas State, realizing that even though you were good and worked really hard as a sax player, that you weren't as good as some other people and you had work
Right.
to do, which was a very mature attitude for a college kid to have. Hats off on
Mm.
that. Um, did it take some adjustment on your part when you first joined Taxi and started getting feedback from the
Yeah.
screeners?
Yeah.
Was your instinct to like, screw you, screeners? What do you know? Who are you? You're probably some dopey intern. What was the process of you coming to grips that the people giving the feedback really give a damn and are
Yeah.
trying to help and
They
are
do.
well qualified? And did you find the feedback to be good?
Yeah. So there's two tiers of feedback. There's the forum feedback and there's a screener feedback. Let me start with the forums first because that's where
Okay.
I learned a lot initially. I decided EDM. It's easy. It's very formulaic. It does this, it does that, it goes to this, it drops down, it gets bigger, and you're done. I
It's
could do
easy to
that.
spell.
Easy, very easy to spell for most of us. So I said, I'm going to do some EDM. And so I took a stab at an EDM track for a listing and I posted it. It was rejected. I posted the link. And unlike lots of folks, I will post the occasional return a link to show here's what was returned. A lot of folks will complain about getting a return, but they won't share the music.
Right.
And so in the forums, I'll be one of those guys that says, "Hey, I understand your frustration. Can you share the music and the listing so we can see what you're shooting for and see where they're at and see if you're
Why
right or
do you
wrong?"
think that they're hesitant? Because deep down inside, they know that they blew it. It's just easier to
Exactly.
blame Taxi and move
Yes,
on.
they're afraid to accept defeat, to acknowledge a mistake, to say I'm sorry, to admit I was wrong. And so back to the EDM listing, I post the music in the forums, and it was a lengthy thread, and folks are like, "This isn't even close, Paul." And I listened to it right away, and I'm like, "What the hell was I thinking? How did I think that was accurate at all?" And two guys, Andy Gabris and Russell Landwehr, gave me very solid direct feedback that wasn't offensive. It was, Paul, this is not right, and consider these things. And they were exactly right. And some folks would have said, "Oh man, why are you so hard on him? That's too serious." No, you've got to accept the feedback.
But they
It
didn't give it with, I know both
no,
of those guys.
yeah,
They are both straight shooters and they don't
absolutely.
mince words, but neither of them, because I know them pretty well, neither of them would do it with malice or
It
with
wasn't.
any agenda like, I'm going to, I'm better than you. None of that.
No, it was truly useful feedback, and it took me back to that North Texas audition when I realized, oh man, I don't know what I thought I knew. I'm not as good as I thought I was. And they were exactly right, and I got better, and I've since had EDM forwards, EDM placements, blah blah blah. But so the forums are very helpful, and the screeners most of the time they'll get it right. Now they're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. No business is perfect. No doctor, no basketball player, no musician is perfect. They're going to make mistakes. I'm going to disagree at times. I'm a
Hopefully,
very
it's not your heart or your brain surgeon.
Exactly, exactly. So there have been times I've disagreed with screeners, but more often than not, 4 times out of five, 9 times out of 10, they get it right. And sometimes I get emotional and I think, man, that's wrong. I disagree. But then I go back and listen. I'm like, no, when you look at the wording of the listing, I missed this key phrase, or I didn't quite check out all three references. I only listened to the first reference and said, oh, that's what they want. Um, I've never made the mistake of taking a song I had and ramming it down the listing, square peg, round hole. I always write for the listing, but you
Which
have to.
you should do a minute on writing for the listing.
Oh, sure.
How, because some people hear that and think it's daunting. Like, it took me a month to do that instrumental track. If I write to the listing,
Boy.
I won't even make the deadlines. So, but a lot of people say that, and
Yeah,
yet so many of our members have crossed that chasm and learned how to write quickly, how to produce quickly, not to get hung up on a single cue and think it's a life or death
it's
situation,
not. It's a
and just
cue, not
keep
a
moving
baby.
forward. As we know,
Yeah.
write,
So,
submit,
yes,
forget, and repeat.
that is it.
Um, how did you cross the chasm of learning to write and produce quickly and just become that productive that you could just keep moving forward?
Yeah, so I've always been a fast writer. I've been asked by lots of taxi members how I do things so quickly, and
Yeah.
because I mean, you look at my post. What did I say? 250
Yeah.
submissions in a single year.
Yeah. And
That's
that was your
that's
first year. That's exceptional. That's a large number for a
that's
first
a
year.
lot of money and a lot of time and
Yeah.
a lot of energy and a lot of passion, a lot of desire on my part to be successful. That's what I mean. That's 5 listings a week.
Yeah.
So that's a lot.
That's one a day, which
Pretty
honestly,
much.
the good productive people can bang out maybe not like an orchestral hybrid cue, but like a
Depends.
dramedy
Yeah.
cue.
Yeah.
A taxi member who's at pro level could probably bang out two dramedy cues a day pretty comfortably without
I
breaking a sweat.
I think, and if you work smarter with templates, et cetera, I was watching a YouTube video yesterday about another guy, and he said 1 week he did 13 cues in a week, and he was exhausted after that. I I did an album of 12 solo piano pieces. I recorded the music in 3 hours. I got all 12 pieces done in 3 hours, but that was solo piano. The muse was with me. It was a very emotional thing. I cranked it out, and it's
And
available
did
on
you have the
Spotify.
same sound for all of them, or did
Yeah,
you?
I used the same project and just did all 12 tracks back to back to keep the sound consistent because I've always struggled with mixing. I've done just earlier this month, I cranked out 10 lo-fi tracks in 2 days. But again, that's lo-fi,
Wow.
very basic concept. I've done 5 hip hop tracks in a single day when the muse is with me. I can crank them out. It takes me about an hour to an hour and a half to create a full track from concept to being done. But that's dramedy, trap, lo-fi, solo piano. When you're looking at epic sports, trailers, vocal tunes, separate story. There's one guy I know that can take an idea to production with vocals in an hour, and that's our friend Marcus Kano. He
Yeah.
is just a
He's a
stud.
freak in a good
He's a
way.
freak in a good way. He's a genetic musical freak. I love the guy like a brother, and he's a machine. And with his
Oh
mom
man, I
and
haven't talked
lyrics,
to him in probably 18 months to 2 years. How's he doing? Good?
he's doing fantastic. He's up in Philly and just crank. I keep on seeing his name in credits, and we're in some libraries together, and he's just cranking out. He's such a talented guy. But yeah, I get asked help. So I produced a lot of videos on my little YouTube channel of how to work faster and smarter, how to use templates to be more productive, how to take something that worked and modify it so you're not starting from scratch. Okay, I got a forward for this dramedy track. I want to crank out 4 more so I can send a batch of 5 to the client now. Well, let's go back to that same track. It's mixed properly. The instrumentation is good. The panning is good. Just change all the notes.
Let's talk about templates for a minute
Sure.
because people who are new to this game probably don't have a
I don't know.
full idea of what a template is.
Sure.
So explain what a template is and why it's so key to working quickly and productively.
Right. Templates are documents that you create in your DAW so that when you open a template, it's got all of your instruments loaded, all your effects loaded, everything panned the way you want it, all the software that you like to use. So you're
You've already
not
found your favorite bass sound that you're going to use for
your
all
favorite snare,
dramedy
your kick,
cues.
your bass, your cymbals, your effects, and then the specific libraries, your omnisphere, your lethal, your all the different things that you want to use. And then I'll do a project, and then if I like the way it sounds, I will clear all the content out and do a save as template, name it lo-fi template or epic orchestral template. And so now I just save myself an hour of time, like click, 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 oh, finding that sound that I like, etc. And so I could start with it's like uh, uh, building a model with the parts already molded and cast versus having to shape the stuff with clay to build the model. It's all there. And the same thing, so you can create orchestral templates and hip hop templates and whatever templates you want. And then you can buy templates. There are stores that sell templates for EDM and hip hop and
And
whatever. You can,
and are they kosher to use in the context of music licensing, or are there
yeah, you
issues
can't
like
use
we
the
hear
meld.
with
Yeah,
samples?
they have music in them, but you cannot use those melodies as and submit it as your own. You got to change, and they stay. Okay, here's all the sounds, and it's mixed and all the cool stuff, but you
Wow.
got to change the melody. It's pretty neat stuff. So I
Okay,
did those
so
for a while
let's
too.
talk about now you've got your template
Hmm.
and let's say that you got a forward from Taxi, the library, loved your dramedy piece.
Hmm.
Hey, Paulie, can you do 10 more of these for an album project? Because they do love now to
Right.
reach out to people who are good at something. They'll say, can you give me 5 more, 10 more, 12 more? So you've gotten that phone call or that email and you say, yes, I can. Is it so you fire up the template, you've got all the sounds, all the panning, all the effects, everything
Hmm.
ready to go. Is your approach next to go, okay, let me think about moods that dramedy is used for or
Hmm.
scenes that dramedy is used for? Oh,
That's
I
so
should
important.
create a sneaky one. I should create a spooky one. I should create a uh-oh, somebody's going to get in trouble one. Do
Yeah.
you go through a thought process like that to come up with the different types?
When they ask for more, I'll ask how many. Then I'll ask, how soon do you need it? I never give up my how quickly I can work. I will see what. Okay, again, can you give me in a couple weeks or a month? I'm like, okay, sure, no problem. And usually it's a week. But as far as what I deliver, but I'll ask, okay, what do you want? You want this? Do you want me to? You want more of the same? Do you want me to branch out and be different? And usually 9 times out of 10, just more like this. They like what they hear. Keep that mood. Just give me different versions.
So it is this, they want more of the same mood and emotion
Yeah,
versus trying a range of different moods and emotions. That's
yeah.
interesting. You would think
And
that they would have too much of something.
yeah, so I've done a few different albums for several taxi friendly libraries, and it's all the same mood. And some of the projects I've done, the owners have said, "This is good, but I don't want to do a whole album of your stuff. I want to use other writers so that we have some variety in the album project." So I'm working on an album right now of some tropical Afrobeat type stuff for a friend of ours, and he's got 5 tracks in mind. He's got 2 other writers involved for that project, so their flavor, their style will be in there along with mine. And it also depends on the genre. I mean, dramedy, there's serious. My dramedy leans towards the hip hop trap Kardashian style versus the Discovery Channel cute puppies and kittens happy stuff, or the sneaky spooky theremin based Halloween Scooby Doo stuff. So I think the supervisors and the library owners, they will specify what they want more of, and then I may send 10, and then this person may say, okay, I'll take these 7, these 3 we're not going to take. So just because you're getting in doesn't mean they're going to take everything. They're going to give you feedback, at least the libraries that you have good relationships with. There's the smaller libraries that are often very hard to get a hold of. They do great things and get placements, but they're small and overworked, and they're not very good at communication at times. That can be frustrating. And they'll just say send more, and then as long as they accept it, that's fine. And if they don't, I'm not offended. I'm going to take those rejects and go to another library. And
Let's
almost
talk
everything that's been rejected has been placed somewhere else.
let's talk about, you just said if they're accepted. So, um, you and I talked about this the other day a little bit. Let's expound on it now, which is the professionalism. So many creative people, musicians specifically in the context of this discussion, kind of feel like they get some sort of pass if their music is really good. I'm so
Right.
talented, people love me, therefore I don't have to live up to the standard of the other half of the equation, which is music
Right.
business, emphasis on business for this discussion.
Right.
And they think, well, even though they requested a 30-second cut down, I'm going to give them mine came out to 31.5. They'll be cool with it because they love me. They love this stuff, right? I'm not making this up.
No, you're
I've
not.
seen this 1,000 times. Or, I need it by Wednesday. You would deliver it on Monday afternoon for a Wednesday deadline. Other
Hmm.
people deliver it on Saturday morning for a Wednesday deadline. And they don't realize that that comes back to bite them on the butt immediately.
Yeah.
They are in the mind of that person at the company.
Yeah.
I can't rely on him or her anymore.
Right.
They didn't give me what I asked. This is a major problem. As you heard in a recent episode of Taxi TV, we had a flurry of like 3 companies hit us up in the very recent past saying the music was exceptionally good. I'm paraphrasing, but I'm
Right.
being accurate in the paraphrase. The music was exceptionally good. However, there's so much hand holding
Hmm.
required because our new members are learning how to make great music through collaborations, through relationships on the forum, watching Taxi TV, and their own hard work. And then they don't follow the submission rules. Like they ask, the library wants 48, 24-bit 48K, and they send them 44.1.
Yeah.
They want, I saw somebody the other day who's got a video out that was a little less than kind about Taxi at times in the video. I went back and looked at this person's submissions. He's putting himself out there as a teacher and a professional. One of the submissions that he didn't get forwarded to asked for instrumentals that were 2 to 3 minutes in length. He sent one that was 5 minutes and 45 seconds.
Attention to detail. Good Lord.
Yeah, I mean, that was a gross, thumbing your nose at detail. And yet this person puts himself out there as an industry professional who's charging others to learn. He's doing some free videos, but I think offering some sort of course or something. I'm
Right.
after
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
thing. So why do you think it is that people would submit a 5 minute, 45-second thing for a 3 minute cap? And is there any advice you can give on how they can avoid that?
Yeah. I got multiple opinions on this, like everything. Part of me loves it because they make me look better by comparison.
I
Creative.
almost spit out my Red Bull on that one. Thanks,
That's I saw you sipping. That's honestly why I paused. I've been in the world of music since I was 10 years old, and I'm 56 now, so it's a long time. And I've experienced theater and stage and shows and all sorts of stuff. Creatives at time are often their own worst enemy. I've seen some of the best musicians in the world. It can't be on time. I had a friend we would hire for jobs, but if it was 8 o'clock gig, we tell them it was a 6:30 start just to make sure he got there on
Didn't they
time.
figure
Okay.
that out after like two
Yeah,
times?
it's like people that set their clock ahead 8 minutes. My wife does that. Why do you do that? I want to know what time it is now. You already know it's 8 minutes ahead, so you're patting yourself. Anyway, I think creatives are often their own worst enemy. They think it doesn't matter. It's good music. They don't care. They don't treat it like a business, which is a point I repeatedly cram in my messaging. You've got to treat it like a business. Be professional. I'm very opinionated. I talk fast and lengthy, etc. And I will share honest critiques in the forums and people face to face, etc. I'm too old to care. My give a crapper broke years ago. I'm always going to be honest. You have to be able to accept feedback, and if you can't accept that feedback, this is not the right business for you. Why do folks submit a 5-minute track to a 2-minute listing? They're not paying attention to detail. It's either it was an honest mistake. Oh crap, I didn't look at that last part, how long it should be, or it was the music's good enough. The supervisor will be fine with it and we can edit it later. No, the supervisors are dealing with hundreds or thousands of inputs constantly, and they're moving under lots of deadlines with no time. They don't have time to handhold, to edit. Oh, can you, yeah, that can you drop the 2K in that a little bit? That was kind of bright for me. And boy, it's really muddy. Maybe do some high path a little bit. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to go to the next track in their list of hundreds of songs to pick. People just think, I think it's a cultural thing recently with generations about, like I said before, padded playgrounds and trophies for showing up, and people not being allowed to learn from mistakes. We get sensitive, we become soft as creators. And creatives are really attached to their feelings, and sometimes that's separate from business skills and productivity, attention to detail, etc. And sometimes it's just pure arrogance. This is good enough, they'll accept it. No, it's not good enough. And if you can't take that, try something different.
Uh, I was going to say something about I had an hour-long conversation yesterday with the owner of a production music library, but I think what we talked about was something I probably shouldn't divulge because I don't want
Sure.
people to know who he is. So we can edit that out, Ari.
Sure thing.
Um, you talk about becoming really good with your software. And I know
Yeah.
that this is another one of those chasms for people who are early in their arc
Yeah.
on the path to becoming professional. Um, and they are so intimidated by Pro Tools or Logic,
Hmm.
whatever, Ableton, whatever they use or attempt to use, that it stops them dead in their tracks. And
Yeah.
you've mentioned in the past some training sites that you went to.
Hmm.
Do you remember what they were? And can you give people an idea of how much bang you get for your buck? Like how much does it cost for one of these training things? And how many hours is the commitment? Is
Yeah.
it an hour a week? Is it 10 hours a week? Is it for 90 days and you're pretty proficient? Is it a year-long process? Give them the big picture,
So
please.
that mark has changed quite a bit since I wrote this thing 7 years ago. So I was recommended ADSR.com, attack, decay, sustain, release, ADSR.com. And then there was MacProVideo.com as well, but I haven't touched those in years because the content on YouTube has gotten so fantastic. So I go down when I can't sleep at night, which is pretty much every night. I have my tablet and I'm on YouTube going down rabbit holes and defining new beat makers and new mixing artists and new genres. And there's so much great information on YouTube to help you get better. The courses back then, there was enough free content for me to learn what I needed to learn based on my levels. And now today, I think YouTube does generate enough free content. There's some friends of ours, taxi members, that have spent hundreds and thousands of dollars on courses. And most of the time they'll say it wasn't really worth the investment. I got something out of it, but it's
Wow.
like, yeah, I signed up for masterclass, fantastic masterclass. Their video production is absurdly good. And I signed up for the Dead Mouse one, Herbie Hancock, Hans Zimmer.
Wow.
There were a few others. And for the most part, despite ridiculously good video content, the musical training I got was not worth the membership, and I didn't renew after that. I didn't glean what I thought. I was let down by Herbie Hancock's educational prowess, one of the greatest jazz players ever, not a good teacher. Dead Mouse made me angry because of all I've put into music education, and he is just a sit on a chair, piano roll, move this stuff around and say inaccurate musical terms to get your point across.
Wow.
Yeah, it's and then there was a producer. I'm completely blanking on his name, a rap producer who would not be famous if not for the two engineer technicians sitting to his side. He would say something, they would do it, and then he'd go forward. It was eye opening. So
I
spending
watched a
money,
video recently about the making of the latest Chainsmokers record, and I think they're great. Not slamming them in any way, shape, or form. Talent, lots of talent.
absolutely.
They rented a house somewhere, and they brought in, like, their engineer and another person. They had a small team of people with them, and largely it was like they go outside, maybe soak up the sun by the pool for a bit, come in and go, so how's it going? Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
like that one.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I thought that they were like slaving over a hot console to
Yeah,
do
no,
this
it's
stuff.
not. That's it. Timberland is the one I was thinking of. He was that way. That because the one time in the video where he kind of threw something together, it sounded like absolute crap. And he's sitting there bouncing and smiling like I just created the next hit. No, that sounds like complete crap.
Well,
And you
maybe
look at
their
the jazz,
talent is pulling together the right people into a team,
yeah,
and that's their talent. There's something to be said for that.
yeah.
But
And you
you're
look at
right.
someone like Kanye, who is a master at sampling, and he changed the industry. He's one of the greatest of all time. But he sits down and does it, and he does the sampling. He finds obscure ways in his brain, we all know is interesting, to find new ways to hear a thing and change music. I mean, what, 7 billion, $8 billion now. He's a
Isn't that crazy?
fantastic. It is. It's got the whole Yeezy brand, etc. His music he changed hip hop, and he's a creative genius. He's the opposite of what I've been describing. He is a master. Where there are so many folks out there that are average or good or lucky or using someone else, but they're smart enough to get folks to give them money to tell them how to do it.
So, do you have, and you didn't know I was going to ask you this, and I'm not sure that you can do
Uh-oh.
it off the top of your head, but if there's anybody who can, I believe you are, can you come up with some bullet points for new taxi members that are just getting started, like reality checks or procedural stuff?
Yeah.
Any bullet points that we could maybe cut into like 3-minute videos for newer members to help give them a leg up early in the game so that they don't have to learn this stuff over a period of time?
Yeah, I mean, there's what advice, the top 5 tips, top 3 tips, top 20 tips, whatever. I've got all sorts of tips. So as a seller, I have to think about who the client is, what's my audience. So if we're talking about new people, new to taxi that have limited musical experience, my number one thing will be sign up for the forums and start reading the FAQs and reading the topics and asking questions. Use the search tool for your question first, because it's probably been asked and answered already, but check out the forums and meet the people in the community. That's exactly what I did in 2015. And I learned the personalities. I started seeing the questions folks were asking. Oh, that's something I was thinking of as well. And about what DAW to use, or how to record better, sound, or how to find a lyricist, or how to collaborate. So the forums are a fantastic wealth of information. So dive there to learn more. I'm all about learning. Of course, with the briefs, read the dang brief, read the listing, and then read it again. I did a video on how to read a taxi brief, and I
I
walked
watched
through
that
it.
video. Thought you did a great job.
Oh, thank
By the
you.
way, while we're on the subject of reading, the Polly's calling them briefs, but we call them listings at
Listings,
Taxi.
yeah.
Just because when I started Taxi, we started doing film and TV stuff. People didn't know the term brief unless you were
Ah,
very inside.
okay.
But you talk about the references. Can
Yes.
you
Oh,
elaborate on
yeah.
the references? Should they try pick one and emulate it, or should they listen to the three and go, what do they have in common? What's
I
your
wish I
approach?
remembered which screeners. At my first rally, there was you had one of the breakout sessions. It was a male and a female screener, um, and it was just it's kind of like how to deal with listings. And I asked the question about references, because often the references are different from each other.
Yeah.
And so I said, how do I target if this one's at this BPM and this one's got this instrumentation? They're very different. And what the screener said to me kind of shaped my direction. He says, listen to all 3 or 4 references and try to find out what they all have in common. Is it the mood? Is it the instrumentation? Is it the tempo? And that kind of blew my mind. I was just trading emails with a taxi member a couple of days ago, and he said, "Hey, Paul, do you think this is will work for this listing?" And there are 4 references, and I said, "No, this will not work. This musically it makes sense, but the listing references are much more sparse, more gentle. You just dive right in with the stuff at the beginning. Your beginning sounds like the end of the references. You've got to listen to all 3 or 4 references from beginning to end. Hopefully it's a full-length reference. The ones that frustrate me are, we want this 2 minutes of music, and here's a 15-second reference under dialogue. Give us 2 minutes. That's harder. But
Yeah,
when they give
it's
you,
tough for us. We have to put those in there
yeah,
because members also get frustrated when we say somebody's looking for a dramedy cue, and we use a song that
yeah,
has a lyric that's a pop song
yeah,
on the radio right now that has some relation to the dramedy cue. So we endeavor to find an actual dramedy cue in the context of a TV show. What we can't do is take a dramedy cue from a library and put that out as the reference because,
right,
we have well over 100,000 people on our email list, which are, people who are not yet taxi members,
right,
people who are members, and people who have been a member. And if we sent out a link to a production music library to, 125,000 people or whatever
right,
that are on the list in aggregate, you would have 5,000 people reaching out to that library, and that library
yeah,
would never talk to us again. So we can't
right.
do that. So we have to find other ways to solve the problem. But anyway, I digress. Please
No, it's okay.
continue.
So you've got to listen to the references to find out what's common. So the person I was talking to the other day, it was a piano thing, and he just started out busy right away. I'm like, dude, okay, listen to this, and I get kind of detail oriented, and I'll say, look, and in this reference at the 37-second mark, you hear the first time more than 2 notes, and here it's spacey. There's no tempo. It's rubato. It's gentle. It's setting something up, and then okay, now we got tempo here, and then at the minute 18 mark, there's this. By the 2-minute mark, now it's full band with strings, etc. So you've got to, and then do that for each of the references. I don't think I have them here. I've got legal pads. You mentioned legal pads years ago on a Taxi TV episode of how you watch TV and you sit down with the wife and you got. I've done that, and I've got a video about that as well, where
It's very educational.
it is. I mean, I learned when I did that. I had this legal pad. I had to go 2 pages. A single Kardashians episode, the one that I watched, had 120 different pieces of music in the 48 minutes of TV.
Which is not
120.
atypical. That
Right.
is, I would say 85 to 120 is the typical range
Absolutely. I mean, 10
number of
seconds.
cues in a typical reality show that airs for an hour and has
And so
48.
I write down, okay, intro, in for commercial. Okay, flyover, drone shot, energetic EDM. Okay, silence, pizzicato strings, Kim's fighting with her mom about the telephone. And I'll pause. And then, okay, drama, high energy dance club, city music, jazz, they're at dinner. You write all that stuff down, and then you go back and look at it and say, okay, and I'm also writing down 20 seconds, maybe a minute. Oh, same piece used second time. And so you're analyzing this stuff and seeing trends. And now I've got 120 or 100 pieces of music. Okay, how many of those are EDM? How many were hip hop? How many were classical? How many were whatever? And I can start seeing these trends. Okay, if a third of their placements are hip hop, I'm going to focus on hip hop because they need that more. But it can be different for a cooking show or a car repair show when it's a bunch of guitars. Like I loved Forged in Fire, that show where they take raw metal and make it
Oh
into
yeah.
weapons. Love that, and I've had some rock and roll on that show, and it's awesome. But you listen to that stuff, and it's high energy stuff, but it's mostly rock guitar stuff. A lot of the car repair shows are all about guitars. So much guitar music out there. But you sit down and you write the notes to see what kind. Is it rockabilly? Is it solid? Is it Metallica? Is it swampy? Steel guitar and harmonicas, etc. And so you've got to analyze the stuff to figure out what you're doing. So I'm kind of going off back to the references. You've got to analyze the references, and what the screener said was find the commonality between the 3 or 4 references we give
Yeah.
you. And
I call
sometimes,
it
yeah,
triangulating.
yes.
They each have a thing. Where do they come together in the middle?
And I think what's really good that your screener writer does, it says, here are 3 references, all caps, that we got from our customer. In other words, dude, you're saying, dude, listen to the music they want this. They're telling us this is not our opinion. Our customer wants you to copy this. That's about as straightforward as you can get.
And just so you know, here's a little inside information about Taxi. Sometimes the people on my A&R staff will get a reference or a couple or three from a client and go, but this doesn't match the genre you're asking
Yeah,
for.
that's a true
Because
thing.
people ascribe different terminology, different things.
Yeah,
They're not ignorant or unprofessional. They just think that this word means that. So they
yeah,
will reach out to them and say, by the way, the genre you're asking for is not really reflected in the references. Would you rather have us go for the genre or what the references are portraying? Oh, thank you for that call. Good point. Go
yeah.
for what the references are saying. And yes, feel
Thank
free
God.
to change the genre to this. And the listings that don't say all the references came from the client, frequently they will give us one reference and then we endeavor to find other references that will work on a playlist with that and give you
Yeah,
something to triangulate to. And the references are checked by yet a second person at Taxi, so it's not just one person's opinion. So
yeah.
we have like processes and safety nets at many, many levels of what we do to ensure that you guys are getting the best info we can give you.
Yeah. So just follow again, you gotta, in technology world, it's RTFM. Read the freaking manual. Well, read the freaking brief, read the freaking listing. The information you need is there. And like I said, I got a video that talks about that. There's other videos that talk about that. So
What's
other
your
people.
where can people see the videos?
If YouTube has switched recently to these handles, the at sign, so it's at Yo Poly Music and Paulie, not a Y. Yo at Yo Poly Music. You can find me. You can search my name, Paul Croteau, and YouTube. You'll find it. And it's just a fledgling. I only got. I'm just under 2,000 subscribers now. I'm doing it just to. It's a
That's
creative
that's
outlet.
pretty darn good. There are a lot of
Oh,
people out there that have 110 people, so congratulations on that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's mostly focused on the sync music, but I also do lots of stuff on saxophone and so I'll go down these rabbit holes. Because God forbid I start bringing bourbon to the equation because that's a whole separate channel. I've thought
Go
about doing
ahead.
it.
Give me some other bullet points. Give
Sure,
me like three or four more quickie bullet points for new taxi members starting out that I might be able to cut into like 3-minute videos each.
sure. Make sure is one of the biggest things I see new members struggling with is sound quality. Make sure you have current equipment. The DAW that you choose, everyone's got their own preferences. I'm a Logic guy because I've been a Mac guy for decades. Other folks love Pro Tools. I think Logic and Pro Tools are the top two most popular. I think Pro Tools is the most, but I don't like the interface for me. I started with GarageBand and now I use Logic. So get a DAW that you feel comfortable in. And how do you do that? They all offer free demos. So go download Pro Tools and Cubase and Fruit Loops and Logic and whatever, and see which one makes the most sense for how your brain works. And then learn that. Go to YouTube and just look at YouTube how to do music in Logic, how to create, dramedy in Cubase or whatever. The videos are all out there. So find a good DAW and make sure you have current sounds. It's not always the sounds, but people will play music with it sounds like a Casio string section or some old software libraries. Like I think you said it earlier, software has gotten so fantastically accurate these days. Strings, the bar is so high. If you're doing a listing in Taxi for strings, your strings better be rock solid, East Coast, West Coast, East West strings, or Opus or whatever it's going to be. The
Can we
sounds has to be
elaborate
current.
just for a second
Sure.
on that? I don't want to spend an hour on this, but just because you buy $1,000 worth of strings or even $500 worth of strings and it's the newest thing that high-end company has put out, you still have to know how to get your articulations right and
Yep.
manipulate those sounds to
Big
make it
time.
sound like real string players and not somebody with a 30-foot
Infinimo.
bow.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's yeah. So it's and you can be successful with old libraries. Our friend Dean has
Oh
used
yeah.
some old libraries forever, and they sound fantastic because he
I think he
knows them
bought
so
some of
well.
those during the Civil War and he does
Yeah,
make them sound
I
fantastic.
think you're exactly right, and he makes them sound so good. So it's the art, it's the tool user, not the tool. But yeah, you've got as a horn player, it drives me nuts when I hear horn sections and horn solos on music that's so blatantly MIDI. And people will say, well, what does it mean when it sounds to MIDI? It's just not doesn't sound real. You have the same articulation for everything. There's no breathing, there's no phrasing, there's no crescendo, decrescendo, there's no pausing. It doesn't sound human. It's like you just took all the attack velocities of your piano and quantized to all be exactly the same. You've got to have the human element. So you've got to have a good DAW and good software that you play correctly. Much more complicated for real string things like strings, woodwinds, horns, saxophones. For electronic, it's different. Now you're focusing on genre accuracy versus musical accuracy, but you've got to, I guess maybe the bigger term, make sure what you're creating is accurate for the genre you're trying to create.
All
That
right,
makes
give me
sense.
another bullet point for new members.
Um, it depends on the genre, but get a good microphone. There are good USB microphones. There are good low-cost microphones under $300 you can get, and learn how to use it, how to record quality without distorting. Understand what a limiter is to not, so you're not peaking out your signal and sending someone a distorted track. Make sure you have if you're doing vocals, you've got a pop screen, so you're not, your plosives, the hard P's and buzz don't cause feedback or distortion. So get a good microphone, and there's tons of YouTube videos. Best microphone under $100, best USB microphones. The free education is out there. So get a good microphone, and learn how to use it. And in a similar vein, get some handheld instruments, some live instruments. If you don't know how to play guitar, get a cheap guitar at a pawn shop. Get some shakers or something, and add some live instrumentation to your recording. Incredible how it freshens things up, adding just a simple live instrument.
We just had a listing about a week ago for a $5,000 sync fee. I want to say it was marching band.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it was a marching band for an Eddie movie starring Eddie Murphy, and doing a cover of a Christmas song. And the listings get, there's an intake person, a drafting person, a writing person, a checking person, a second checking person. Then it comes to me to add the salt and pepper and the ketchup and mustard on the
Yeah.
list. And one of the things I included was, uh, if you're doing your drums in MIDI, creating a marching band in MIDI, which can be done, then go just take a regular old snare drum, tune it up nice and high and record it, mic it from across the room,
Mm-hmm.
and lay that on the top of the MIDI stuff. Do two passes of that. It will make it sound incredibly
Absolutely true.
human and real, because the ear will go to that faster than it will go to the MIDI stuff. And the overall effect is, wow, that sounds like a real marching band. So that's really good information.
I've done horn section recording where the saxophone was the only live instrument. I've got good sounds for my brass, but trumpets, trombones, even before I got my Barry, I had a good Barry sample, but I would add one or two live saxophones, and that sounds like a freaking live section. That's how it
Yeah.
works. So adding live instruments makes a difference. I had another point I wanted to bring up. Get organized. This is a big tip. If you want to do this, if you're doing this for revenue and you want to produce a lot of music, get a whiteboard, get a legal pad, whatever you need to do to remember things, to not miss deadlines. When I get busy, it seems like the stars align, and suddenly 3 or 4 libraries will send listings out the same week. I'm like, oh, I better write this down. And so write down the library, the person, the style, the date, the quantity. And so do what you need to do to stay organized and not have to, oh my God, that's due tomorrow. Rush. Look what I created. It's crap, but I met the deadline. No, that's not how this game works. It matters. So find a way to get organized, so you don't fall behind.
That very point was brought up by the gentleman who's not renewing Taxi and did a video about it. And he made some reference to, yeah, I just barely got this in by the deadline. But if you're a professional, you don't do that. It's not high school and homework. The dog
Right.
can't eat it,
Yeah.
and you got to deliver it on time. But just, if it's due on Wednesday, start Sunday morning. So you got all day Sunday, not a work day for most people, and beat the deadline. Don't We get people to get really upset, like for that $5,000 Eddie Murphy listing, and we said we can't extend the deadline on this, whatever it was. Let's say, I think it was like 10 o'clock in the morning or noon or something. The following day was a very quick turnaround thing. And people, literally dozens of people, reached out to us in the 5 minutes after the deadline had passed, even though the listing said in all caps, don't ask for an extension on the deadline. A dozen or more people reached out saying, I just finished mixing at 12:02. Can you please open it back up? And we couldn't. And they were
No,
pissed.
sorry.
I just spent 10 hours working on this. I'm sorry. All you had to do was get it in by a minute before the deadline passed.
Right. That's that expectations of the world's not fair. I'm here. Where's my trophy? Sorry, the real world has deadlines. Okay. I just thought of one that I don't know why I didn't think about it first. It's my first rule. The biggest mistake I made when I joined Taxi is somewhat indicated by the fact that I submitted to 250 listings in the first year. I thought I could apply to everything because EDM, I could do that, and whatever that is, I can do that, and dance and Latin. I spread myself way too thin. Focus on the genre or genres that you're good at, the ones that you know, the music that you grew up on. I grew up listening to classical and classic jazz, and soul music. And so those are in my blood, my DNA. And so they
What
come
if
easy.
there aren't enough listings in those genres that you grew up in and you're very adept at?
Well, then there's two ways to do. If I want to continue producing that stuff, keep writing tracks, knowing that those listings will come back and have a catalog ready for when they do, or use this as a time to say, I would like to learn a new genre and plug. I've got a video on how to learn new genres. And that was from feedback I got in the forums, how to learn a new genre. So you can take that time and say, maybe I could learn something similar. If I'm a country person, I play guitar, maybe I could get a stomp box or get some software and go in the rock vein and maybe start doing some things here or do some dramedy. I mean, Steve Barden has a fantastic book on how to write cues. Get a book from Dean or Steve and pursue a new genre. They handhold you through the process, and you can learn, add a new tool to your arsenal. But in the big picture, focus on what you're really good at because it'll become easier to you. You'll recognize what's authentic and what's not for that genre. But focus on the first genre or two. And I didn't do that for years. I literally wasted the first 2 years of my life at Taxi, me submitting the wrong things. And then once I started focusing on the stuff I'm really good at, it was like maybe that was the switch that happened. Oh, Paul, you're good at this. Do this. They'll like it. You get placements. Bada bing, bada boom.
So many people just squander their first year or two.
Yep.
We've actually started doing something you may not know about because you're not a new member, is we now do new member Zooms once a month for everybody
that's
who's
cool.
joined in the last 30 days. I address a lot of these issues for them in a 90-minute Zoom and then have them ask questions at the end. Like after the 60-minute mark, they start asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
What we're going to do now is take a 60-minute version that I've already recorded of that. Every time somebody joins, our database will automatically trigger an email that goes out with a link to that new member Zoom. So the stuff that you learned in year 2 or 3, or when you came back after a 7-year absence or whatever it was, they can learn this stuff right up front. I may actually take some clips from this interview because it's so good.
Absolutely.
And send that out to them. And then once a month, we're going to do a new member live Q&A on Zoom so that they can ask more detailed questions or maybe stuff that's more particular to their unique situation or something. So we go to every extent we can to arm people with what it took you a while to figure out. And I know you well enough to know that you're, I can't think of a better word than you're pretty anal.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know if I would say you're raging OCD, but when you fixate
Guilty.
when you fixate on something, you go deep.
Yeah.
And man, I think it's enviable that, you take it so seriously that you will go deep and learn all this stuff rather than skimming the pages, flipping through, the book and going, yeah, I think I got the vibe here. No, you want to know every detail and you tend to get stuff really right. So, man, if there's any Taxi member, for those of you watching this, who on many levels, whether it be the business side, the production side, the playing side, all those aspects are ruled by taking it seriously and learning as much as they can rather than diving in going, well, I probably won't get this right. I probably won't get it forward, but I'm going to submit it anyway. That is not your approach. I think maybe your first year, 250 submissions, you had a little case of new memberitis, but boy,
absolutely.
Oh boy,
I was a puppy in a park. Oh my God. Play,
I love that. I've never heard that phrase before.
Yeah, there's so much new stuff. There's a bone and a ball and another dog, what's a fire hydrant? Oh my God. I was ADD, OCD everywhere. And I'm excited because remember, I came from a couple of years of not doing music. So it was like, oh my God, my people, I'm here. And I wasted a lot of time. And now I've become known for certain styles and genres. Saxophone, I get calls all the time. Most of my placements are trap, hip hop. About a third of all my placements are that genre.
Wow.
After that, it's a lot of jazz, tension. But I do a lot of genres now. But I immersed myself. You can't just go on the fly and try things. You got to immerse yourself in the genre and be authentic, be traditional, respectful to that genre, to that groove.
Well, I've got to say, This has been a fantastic interview, Paulie. First of all,
And
thank you for
fun.
taking the time on a Saturday to do this. And thank you for being so giving and sharing. You know, a lot of people would get really precious about this information and not want many of their fellow members to know this stuff because ostensibly it could be seen as, well, I'm going to help them compete against me. But for some reason, the taxi community doesn't have this like fear of competition vibe. It's more like, rising water floats all boats.
Yeah, there's
And
enough
I
pie
think,
for everybody.
yeah, yeah, there's enough pie for everybody who takes the time to get it right. And I think the information that you've given them over the last hour or so is going to go a long way. So thank you very, very much. Paul Croteau, ladies and gentlemen, Yo Polly, and once again on at Yo Polly Music.
At Yo Paulie Music, Paulie, at Yo Paulie Music. And you'll find me on YouTube and follow me on Instagram if you want as well. I don't do Twitter a whole lot, but Instagram, if you want to know who I am as a person, Instagram, it's music, it's motorcycles, it's bourbon, it's food, it's dogs. You know, it's my Instagram's a lot of fun. I
As
like
long as it's
photography.
not like Polly in a Speedo, I'll go check it
No, it's
out.
yeah, it's not. It's fun. It's really eye candy. I take a lot of pictures of my motorcycle when I go on rides because South Texas you can ride year round and it's great. But yeah, at Yo Paulie Music, and I'm happy to help out. I'm paying it forward because a lot of great tax members paid it forward for me when I first joined, and you've built such a fantastic community and ecosystem that can help people succeed if they are willing to do their part. It's not you just come and get it. You got to earn it, but taxi makes it easier for you to earn it than other places.
Thank you, Polly.
All right, Michael. Thanks for your time, man. Great talking to you.
Likewise.